Of our team. As usual, we like to start with the trivia question, and as we're moving to midway through the league schedules, I thought this week's trivia question should focus on the national championships. And our question for this week, and we'll give you the answer at the end of today's program, is what is the site of the CIAU Men's National Championship? Which city in Canada, again, is the site of the Men's National Championships? And we'll give you that and some of the information related to those championships later in today's program. Well, let's first of all look at some of the action that occurred this last weekend in GPAC, as we had games here at the University of Winnipeg and University of Manitoba, and games in Regina, where the Brandon Bobcats visited the Regina Cougars. And last Friday in Regina, the Regina Cougars upset the Brandon Bobcats 89-88 as Brandon fell short on a last-second shot by Keith Vassell. Regina had made a couple of free throws with 12 seconds remaining in the game, giving Brandon an opportunity with the last shot, but it was to no avail as the Cougars upset Brandon for their second win of the current GPAC campaign. On Saturday night, Brandon rebounded with strong performances by David Nakoni and Keith Vassell to defeat Regina 87-83. And those, again, were exciting games in Regina in front of full-capacity audience, and the Regina Cougars are starting to show a little bit of movement in the GPAC standings as we approach midway through the season. Here in Winnipeg, for many of you that were at the games at the University of Winnipeg on Friday and the University of Manitoba on Saturday, you saw some great action. On Friday, the University of Winnipeg Wesmen upset the #1 team in the country, the University of Manitoba Bisons, by a score 93-81, and won actually quite comfortably, going away in the second part of the second half. Top scorers for the University of Winnipeg were Norm Fromell with 22 points, and Jeff Foreman added 16 for the Wesmen. Winston Duncan came off the bench and had a great game for Manitoba, scoring 18 points, 10 of those coming in the first half. On Saturday night at the University of Manitoba, the Manitoba Bisons rebounded with a convincing 99-66 victory over Winnipeg. Actually a very surprising game, as Winnipeg held a 41-40 lead at halftime, but really things fell apart in the second half, and some great three-point shooting, especially by Yorick Park and Greg Philman, coasted the Manitoba Bisons to the victory. Top scorers for Manitoba, inside Dennis Smith had a great game with 24 points, and in the inside forces, the Twin Towers for the University of Winnipeg, again were their top scorers, Norm Fromell adding 19 and Jeff Foreman adding 17 to that 66-point total. Now, after this completion in games, we have the following that are in the standings in GPAC. Brandon and Manitoba continue to be tied with records of 7-3, 7 wins and 3 losses, giving them both 14 points. And again, this tie will be broken this coming weekend as the University of Manitoba Bisons move out to Brandon to entertain the Bobcats in a 2-game series. The University of Winnipeg is third with a record of 4-6. The University of Regina, again making some movement with 2 wins in the last 2 weekends, are currently now 2-8. And so the current standings, again, Brandon and Manitoba tied for first, Winnipeg in third, and the Regina Cougars in fourth place, but moving up quickly. We'd like now to look at some of the highlights of the action of this last weekend, and we'll share with you some of the action at the University of Manitoba, the game played on Saturday night between the University of Manitoba Bisons and the University of Winnipeg Wesmen. Great excitement in front of about 1,500 to 1,800 fans, and I think the people there really enjoyed men's university basketball. Open here from the jump ball, and you can see Scott Anderson, Winnipeg in their black uniform, knifing in front of the Manitoba defender, scoring that slashing layup that is very, very common for Scott as he moves very, very tough to the basket. Winnipeg coming out in a press. Alex Akajani ahead to Dennis Smith, who drives into the middle and over top of Norm Fromell for 2 of his 24 points. Ball moved in the half court by the Wesmen, again in their black uniforms. The Manitoba Bisons in their home white. High post inside, Scott Anderson to David Corpella, inside to Norm Fromell. A lot of traffic inside. He's able to drop it in over the rim, really with about 2 or 3 Bison defenders around him. Scott Anderson again slashing to the hoop off a long pass from David Corpella. Again in the half-court game. Winnipeg moving the ball. You can see Brett Turner opening up in the corner and hits a 2-pointer, close to being a 3-pointer from that right corner spot that he really likes. Drive inside by Eric Bridgeland. It's cut off by the Winnipeg Wesmen defenders. Greg Philman again drives through. Strong rebound inside by Scott Anderson. A long pass you'll see coming off of here. Great catch by Jeff Foreman. Retains his balance and lays it in off the glass. Jeff has a lot of speed for a big man. Could move down that center court. Gets himself a lot of layups. Part of the difficulties Winnipeg had was some early difficult calls. In that one you saw Jeff Foreman being called for a push-off. And both Norm Formel and Jeff Foreman really picked up a lot of early fouls that took its toll later in the contest, as Jeff fouled out and Norm spent a large percentage of the time on the bench and allowed the Manitoba inside people really to score a lot of points. And we talked about Dennis Smith with a great game with 24 points. Rhett Turner hitting a three-pointer from the side. You see the ball moved inside to Norm Formel. He pitches it back out to Scott Anderson, who knocks down that 17-footer. Norm becoming a much better passer in the post, too, as he's getting now double and triple team contact inside. Scott Anderson at the high post. He'll move the ball around again inside to Norm, and he drops it up over the top using his height advantage. He's leading the conference now in field goal percentage and in rebounding. Great accomplishments for the second-year forward, 7 feet tall, out of J.H. Burns Collegiate here in Winnipeg. Scott Anderson dropping in one from the elbow. You see here Eric Bridgeland jumping into Norm Formel, and it ends up being called a three-point play. Again, one of Norm's early fouls that took him out of the game. Inside drive by Eric Bridgeland. He pitches it off to Keon Filowich, who drops it home. A lot of good penetration from Manitoba in the game. Really resulted in a lot of pitches that occurred off the penetration. We really rotated very poorly and gave up a lot of high percentage baskets. Neil Armstrong driving to the hole. He's fouled by Winston Duncan. And see, here's a long pass that bounces off the Manitoba defender inside again to Neil Armstrong, who's knocked to the floor. Goes to the free throw line to convert those free throws. Inside to Jeff Foreman again. Heavy contact inside. Basket is disallowed. Jeff Foreman charged with that player control foul, and that took him out of the game early. And when we're losing our top players, Jeff Foreman and Norm Formel, inside, it's fairly obvious that we really haven't got much else defensively inside. And we gave up a lot of easy points. Manitoba again scoring 99 in that game, a 99-66 victory. And I think that was indicates some of the early play in that game, where there was a lot of good play on our part, but as the game started to tail off, the Manitoba shooters certainly took their toll on us. And as we had mentioned before, Yorick Park, coming off the bench, had a great game for Manitoba. Greg Fillen especially late in the game hit a lot of three-pointers that really took us out of the game and gave them a convincing victory. It was the split I guess we were looking for. We had hoped for both of the wins, but keeps us well in touch with that first-place rung in GPAC, as we still only remain a couple of games out of there. And with 8 games remaining in the schedule, all teams have 8 games remaining. We have 6 of those 8 games at home, and 4 of them with Regina, who is vastly improved, but I would hope that we would be able to sweep all 4 and move right back into the thick of things in GPAC. GPAC, a very, very tough conference this year, with all 4 teams showing strength, and 3 of the teams being part of the national top 10. And I think that's really a unique situation where 75% of a league has actually appeared within the top 10, and Regina being the only team out of it, they have victories over Brandon and over Winnipeg, who again have been in the top 5 nationally. So we're very proud of GPAC, even though it does take its toll on you, and I think it creates a lot of excitement, and I hope our fans out there really appreciate it. Now let's have a look across Canada now and see what's happening with some of the other standings and some of the other games of interest. We'd like now to look at the CIAU Top 10 and bring you up to date with what's happening across the country. This Top 10 issued last week from Ottawa. There'll be a tremendous number of changes, as the top 6 teams on this list all suffered losses this past weekend. Manitoba, as we talked about, split with Winnipeg. St. Mary's was defeated by St. Francis Xavier, and Brandon split with Regina. Saskatchewan split with UBC. Both of those close games at UBC at the Vancouver campus. Saskatchewan, I'm sure, is quite happy to get out of there with 1 win, but they were defeated in the second game by British Columbia on Saturday night. St. Francis Xavier, as we talked about, defeating the number 2 team in the country, St. Mary's, and also losing at the same time to the University of New Brunswick. Acadia dropped a decision to the University at Cape Breton College in Glace Bay, Sydney, and that was a big loss for Acadia, who had started to make some moves up the national rankings. The last 4 pretty well staying as they are. Calgary still very strong in Canada West, had games with Lethbridge this weekend and split. Brock still being the top team in Ontario West, and they have really defeated most of the challenges now and are #1 team in that strong conference that features Waterloo and Guelph. And a team we have to look for in the next little while is the University of Western Ontario, last year's national champions, who are starting to make some big moves with virtually a new team. They lost all 5 starters from last year, but they're now starting to defeat some of the established teams in Canada West. The University of British Columbia at number 9 and Guelph at number 10. Again, with UBC's victory over Saskatchewan, they may move somewhere. And Guelph, they split over this past weekend with the University of Western Ontario, and we're not sure where they will stand. But I think there'll be a lot of movement in this next week, and indicates the tremendous parity that's out there. There's tremendous parity really from coast to coast, and really at this time, no one can really say that they're favored to win the national championship. As a matter of fact, we'll probably have a new #1 candidate this week, and it could be a team like St. Francis Xavier, who has been on that spot 2 times in the past. So really a lot of action occurring from coast to coast, and we hope that you are kept up to date with our bi-weekly look at what's happening across the country and the CIU National Top 10. As we mentioned in our introduction to the show, we're very pleased this weekend to bring to you on our player profile section an interview with Neil Armstrong, a second-year forward out of Windsor Park Collegiate here. And first of all, Neil, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Nice to be here, Coach.
And this is an interesting, I think, opportunity for you to get to know Neil, because some of you may not have seen him play a lot, and we'll talk about why he hasn't played a lot in the 2 years he's been with us. And we'll also, I think, develop some of the other things that Neil has, some of the tremendous things that he brings to our program, things that occur off the basketball court. And maybe, first of all, Neil, you just bring people up to date with how you started the game and some of your earlier coaches and some of the earlier successes you had with basketball.
I was fortunate. I played at Windsor Park Collegiate with Coach Brian Thompson. And I was also fortunate enough to be able to play with a lot of quality players. I was with Jeff Orman, now plays with the Wesmen, Eric Christensen, now a player for the Bisons, and Jeff Poole, a former Westman last year. To play with guys like that really helped me develop my game, and with Coach Thompson brought my fundamentals to a level where I was able to play university basketball.
We were obviously very impressed by your skills and recruited you right out of Windsor Park Collegiate. Maybe before we continue, we could tell our folks at home not to adjust their sets, that their color's not off, that the actual color under your eye is a natural, and that's one of the things that happens in practice. You picked up a stray elbow last week, and it's actually looking a lot better than it did last week, but there's really nothing wrong with the sets, and I think this is just part of playing basketball.
That's right, it sure is. You go underneath the rebound, you're going to get your fair shots. It happens.
Yeah. You also have been quite active in other sports. I know that, especially not maybe as much today, but in earlier years you were very active with golf, and I think that really has helped you in a number of ways with mental preparation, the mental toughness required in basketball, but financially it's also helped you too.
Yeah, it sure has. I basically grew up at a golf course in my earlier years. I'd say from about the time I was 10 years old, I've been playing golf competitively. And in the past couple of years, I've been rewarded for it. Manitoba Golf Foundation has given me a $1,000 scholarship. It's based on excellence in the classroom and past extensive golf history.
Well, the years that you've been at the University of Winnipeg, now a year and a half really of academic work, you've done so very, very well. Your grade point average is at the maximum. It's 4.0. It can't be any higher than that. You virtually had about all A's and A+s so far. What are some of the areas that you're looking to explore in the academic section of your life?
Right now I'm majoring in administrative studies at the University of Winnipeg. Upon completion of that, I'd like to go into the Chartered Accountancy program, which is probably about another 2-3 years on top of that.
You've done so very, very well, and it's a very challenging program. I know that it's a program that presents a lot of tough courses, and you've accepted those challenges, and I know that you've enjoyed the work, and we're very proud of the fact that you were able to put together that kind of a GPA. As a matter of fact, you were even awarded an entrance scholarship from the University of Winnipeg based on the good grades that you had, excellent grades you had at Windsor Park Collegiate, and it's part of the, I think, things we really look for in a student athlete, that they not only play hard, but they also do very well. And you've really set a tremendous, I think, example for the rest of the people on our team, and should be very, very proud of that. I guess related to that, though, it sounds like everything's been gravy for you. You've done so well. You were recruited. Your courses are going well. You have a goal in your life, but there's also been some difficulties, and I think the injury, maybe the little color under the eye, was very minimal according to some of the other injuries. Let's talk a little bit about some of the injuries you've suffered.
Yeah, my major injuries, I've had fairly extensive knee problems coming out of high school. Started in Nova Scotia, actually, playing for the Manitoba junior team at the Canadian Nationals. I was driving to the hoop, I got hit, and I came down from a jump, and my knee gave way on me. So that was about 3 months of rehab. There goes training camp for my rookie year with the Wesmen. And I got back from that, started to play. Was back with Wesmen for about 2 months, and then actually injured the knee again. Second one pretty severe. I had to go and had my knee reconstructed last February, and after that operation, which was about a 2-hour operation, I was in rehab for about 8 months, and then I was able to come back early November and start playing again.
Well, as we saw in the highlights, you were very active on the weekend. You got some great playing time on Saturday night. You actually took a few blows, and I wanted to put those in, I think, for the people to see that the knee has come a long way, and that you're able to take the contact of the game. You get knocked to the floor in one of those highlights when you end up at the free throw line, and you're up right away, and I think that that's a real credit to the people that have worked with you, not only yourself, but I think some of the people, Dr. DeCrompe, who did the surgery here in town, and Ben Trunzo, our athletic therapist, talks about the surgery involving hacksaws and hammers and drills, and it was quite an operation as they grafted a section into the ligament of your knee. And then the rehabilitation that Ben Trunzo has dealt with, and some of the things you've had to go through too. I know that a lot of the strength has to come from you when you rehabilitate an injury, especially one that's been hurt twice.
Yeah, when you come back from injury and you have that sort of duration of rehabilitation, you're going to have days where you don't see a lot of progress, you get frustrated, and you just have to refocus and think about the long-term goal. You want to get back to playing basketball, and if you stay negative, you don't do the work, it's not going to happen.
I think a lot of people, from my experience, would have packed it in a long time ago, because you do become frustrated and you figure, is it worthwhile? And I think there's a lot of credit not only for what you've done in the classroom, but the fact that you've hung in there with tremendous mental toughness, and you are prepared to make a commitment to a game you love, and you've worked yourself through almost a year and a half of tough injuries that have required a tremendous amount of rehabilitation. And I think you should be given a whole lot of credit for that. And we'd hope now that some of the contact you're taking and some of the game situations, practices, indicate that you're ready to go.
Yeah, I sure hope so. When you first come back, you get some contact and you're a little leery, is the knee going to give out again? But after you've been back for a while, you're not even aware of the contact. The knee doesn't bother you at all. You're ready to play.
Well, you wear a large supportive brace on the knee, and people may see you play. It's actually coated. Well, maybe you talk about the brace that helps you, I think, overcome some of those fears.
Yeah, the brace I wear is a Generation 2 knee brace. It is rather large and bulky, but as far as mobility, I don't think it hinders me at all. Still able to move laterally and still able to run. It may look from the crowd for fans watching that it's a big brace, it's going to slow them down, but in reality it doesn't affect my play barely at all.
And it's covered with sort of a neoprene, which is really, I think, the rules require it to be covered.
Yeah, the rules require, there's a metal hinge on it that can bang players and probably mark them up pretty bad. So they require you to wear some sort of padding over that, and what I wear is a large oversleeve that covers the whole leg.
Yeah. So it looks like something that's quite cumbersome, but something you've probably become used to, and I think you got to wear for the rest of your athletic career.
That's likely. I spoke to the surgeon about it. He said, you have the brace, you might as well wear it because it can happen again and the brace can help. So better safe than sorry with the brace.
Well, we've seen tremendous improvements in your lateral mobility, your strength as you've come back off the injury, and now we're testing it under game conditions. And I think the future looks great, and you've been a super part of our program. I think you've set tremendous examples on and off the floor, and many people are probably not aware of some of the frustrations you've gone through, but I just think talking with you this morning, the people are obviously aware that you're ready to come back, and you're excited and you love the game, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah, it's nice to be back, and I plan to be around for a while.
Great.
We'll get some more playing time and keep the knee coming around.
All right, that's excellent. Thanks for joining us, Neil, and again, the best of luck in all those areas.
Thanks, Coach. Very nice to be here.
All right, great. Moving on, this last week was also a very important time for basketball here in the city of Winnipeg, and I'd like to comment about the awarding of a WBL, World Basketball League franchise to the city of Winnipeg. I had an opportunity to visit the press conference, and Sam Cates and the local investors should be very proud that they've been awarded this franchise. And there's a lot of old friends of the University of Winnipeg Wesmen program, Carl Ridd, Vic Pruden, John Lavin, and Jack Lewis, a former coach at the University of Manitoba that I played for, I think are all people involved, I know that are all involved with the program in one way, and we wish them all the best. Basketball here in the city of Winnipeg has been very, very popular over time. There's been some great senior teams, the Toilers and the Paulins, St. Andrews, Nicollet Inn. There's been great high school programs over years and many great high school coaches. And there's been great university competition in the province of Manitoba with Brandon, Manitoba, and Winnipeg using many of those high school athletes that we talk about. And I think it just seems fitting that this component that's always been missing is now here. This franchise that the World Basketball League has awarded the city of Winnipeg, is something that I think will add that finishing touch to a basketball package that really is second to none across the country. And we would wish them all the best, and I would also like to challenge the basketball community at this time to get out there and support this franchise. Oftentimes we have talked about the prowess of basketball. We are all very proud of what basketball has done and is doing here in the city of Winnipeg, and I think we owe it to come out there and support this franchise 100%. It's a great component that finishes off this package that makes basketball, the city of Winnipeg, the basketball capital of the country. And again, we'd like to wish Sam Cates, all the investors and all the people working with the program, all the best from the University of Winnipeg, and we hope that we can assist them in a number of ways in the years to come. Again, a great news for the city of Winnipeg, with Winnipeg being awarded a World Basketball League franchise. Now, coming up this weekend and the weekend following, we have games at the University of Winnipeg Duckworth Center. And again, the University of Winnipeg very fortunate in having 6 of the remaining 8 games in GPAC schedule here in the city of Winnipeg. On January the 31st, Friday night, and February the 1st, Saturday night, the University of Regina Cougars will be here. And games, again, are 6:15 for the women's game and 8 o'clock for the men's game. Regina, again, making movement in the GPAC standings with 2 victories in the last 2 weekends, will challenge Winnipeg in both games, and they are must games for the University of Winnipeg if they hope to stay strong in that search for a solid playoff position, either number 1 or number 2, in which case both teams have a home court advantage. The following weekend, Friday and Saturday again, February 7th and 8th, the University of Brandon Bobcats will be at the Duckworth Center, and those are always exciting games. Last game there, Brandon eked out a 1-point victory, and Winnipeg will be looking to avenge those. So the next 2 weekends you have 4 games at the Duckworth Center, and again, great examples of university exciting basketball. Our answer to our trivia question, we'd asked you where's the site of the men's national championships for the CIU, and the answer again, and hopefully most of you knew this, is Halifax. The third